Good morning, everyone. Good morning, OSA. It is a quiet morning in the Torres household, so I thought it's as good as a morning as any to send this video. I was speaking to Pastor about offering some of the work that I do to the congregation in these times. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tanya Burl Torres. My husband is Wilson. My daughters, Noemi and Dahlia. And I am a dancer and a choreographer, a movement director, but also a yoga instructor, and I do a lot of work with body work at the intersection of art, spirituality, and social justice. And I've been using a lot of my practices, especially in times like this, to do a lot of deep spiritual body work. And speaking to Pastor and to Claire just about how much of this is being processed in the body, this pandemic, and kind of the global anxiety that's rising and as well as a lot of other things. So I thought, what can I do? And this was just an offering that I'd love to put out to the community. And so the way I think this will go is I will start with a scripture, and then with that lead you into a body scan or a meditation, a centering prayer, and that's it. Just something to kind of contemplate, but also to sit with as you process the stuff that's coming up in your bodies. I'll just talk a little bit more in this video to kind of preface how the work works. So as a yoga instructor, I do use some terminology that some of you may be familiar with or not. A lot of the energy systems in the body, so in yoga this is called the chakras, but it's basically, they're called nadis, which there's 72,000 nadis in the body. They're just energies, they're energy lines in the body. If you do acupuncture, that energy is known as chi. In yoga, it's known as spanda. We call it the Holy Spirit or just whatever is flowing throughout the body. So use whatever works for you, throw out what doesn't work for you. But with these energy centers, a lot in these meditations, I'll just ask you to kind of scan up and down the spine. What I like about this physiologically is the spine is the spiritual center of the body in many traditions. But in a medical sense, it's also the central nervous system and where our immune system sources all of its strength. So in times like this, whether you're battling with the pandemic or just your health in general, you can take this from a micro to a macro level in terms of if it's something about spiritual healing, something about just physical healing, or a combination of the two. I like to always say with this, my faith comes first in all of this work. And for me, God has always spoken to me in a very physical, felt, embodied way. That doesn't work for everybody, but that's how God speaks to me, and I do believe that God speaks to everyone in their own unique way. So this is my offering to you. But again, if it doesn't serve, then so I put that all out there to say that this morning, if you would like to practice this very simple meditation, feel free to find a comfortable seat. That can be in a chair like I am. It can be laying fully prostrate on your back on your bed or on a yoga mat on the floor, supported behind your knees with a pillow if that feels great. Just whatever lets you feel like you can really sink into something and feel comfortable for a few minutes. As you're kind of getting yourself set up, I will just share that I was inspired by this book this week. I don't know if any of you have read it, but for those parents out there, almost all of my inspiration is coming from children's books now that I've been forced into being a full-time teacher. But anyway, reading that book and seeing the change of the seasons outside and just the metaphor of the seed and how that comes up in Jesus's teachings, it's just such a beautiful metaphor, simple but incredibly clear. So if you have that book, read it. I don't know, it just it grounded me. If you don't, no worries. So if you found your comfortable position, I invite you to either close your eyes or soften your gaze and start to gently breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So softening your lips. If you are dealing with allergies right now, opening the mouth is fine. but just allowing the energy in the body to circulate and keeping it internal. If you close the mouth and just allow the nostrils to breathe the air in and out. And as you do that, on each exhale, can you send your awareness down to your feet? Visualize yourself sending your breath down to your feet, feeling your feet either planted firmly on the ground if you're seated, or feeling the heels heavy and weighted down. Maybe the toes shift out to the side if you're lying on your back. Maybe a sigh feels nice right about now. And so as you ground your breath down towards your feet, I invite you to bring your hands to a place on your body that's feeling a tension, perhaps some sense of rumbling, or just anything that's kind of heightened right now. For me lately, it's been right around my hips and pelvis and my lower belly. And so wherever your hands lie, then I invite you to soften underneath your hands there. And so the breath is directed down towards your feet. Your hands are holding on to a place of tightness, tension, dissonance, discomfort perhaps. And so continue to take your deep breaths in and out through the nose as I read for you John 12:24-25. Listen carefully. Unless a grain of wheat is buried in the ground, dead to the world, it is never any more than a grain of wheat. But if it's buried, it sprouts and reproduces itself many times over. In the same way, anyone who holds on to life just as it is destroys that life. But if you let it go, reckless in your love, you'll have it forever, real and eternal. Taking a moment to allow those words to settle into your spirit, into your body. Coming back to the awareness underneath your hands. And I don't know about you, but that feeling often has a story attached to it. Often it's a negative story. An attack on my worthiness, on my ability to be productive, on who I am as a mother, on my ability to cope or get through, or to not cope or not get through things. And so I invite you to drop that story and just pay attention to the feeling. What is the feeling and the sensation? Is it dull and tingling? Is it warm? Is it cold? Is it tight? Is it hard? Is it soft? And then start to amplify that feeling. And perhaps you can envision that feeling or that sense in the body like this shell, like this seed, this grain of wheat. This grain of wheat is buried deep down into the earth and is trying to make its way through the dark, through the dirt, through the muck, and pierce the surface. And that sense of piercing the surface never comes without a sense of struggle, a sense of resistance, and suffering. So welcoming that sensation, and perhaps as you send your breath to that place, you can envision that seed or that grain expanding in your body, growing, but instead of it being a darkness that grows, can you sense it as a sprout or a shoot of light that not only grows upwards, but also grows downwards, outwards, backwards, circular, perhaps. So transforming that seed now into something new, into life, into something that eventually will reproduce itself over and over and over again. So transforming that seed with your breath. Just staying here for another, let's say 5 more rounds of breath, just in silence here. Listen carefully. Unless a grain of wheat is buried in the ground, dead to the world, it is never any more than a grain of wheat. But if it's buried, it sprouts and reproduces itself many times over. In the same way, anyone who holds on to life just as it is destroys that life. But if you let it go, reckless in your love, you'll have it forever, real and eternal. John 12:24 and 25. So taking the next few breaths here, if you're still with that visualization, stay with it. If your seed has stayed where it was planted underneath your hands, no judgment, right? That's all. Everyone's journey is different. Staying where you are. But wherever you are, I invite you now to send some words or a centering prayer to this seed or to this sprout that's grown. And so, for example, if my seed that was planted, if its fear was of being worthy, perhaps my prayer to it very simply is, be still, or I am, or just be. I sometimes like to choose a 2-syllable phrase so I can flow on the breath and inhale just and exhale be. Whatever words of encouragement you have for yourself or for this place or this feeling of stuckness in your body, just take a few breaths to breathe these words of encouragement. Let go. It's another good one. You're loved, real and eternal. Whatever comes up for you, don't try to think about it. Don't let it rush to the head. Just whatever comes to the surface, literally. Just a few more moments here. And then on your next exhale, just release your hands down either into your lap or alongside you. Release that visualization, release whatever mantra or prayer that you layered on there. And just take 3 full deep breaths. We'll do this together. A deep breath in through the nose and a sigh out the mouth. And again, a deep breath in and out the mouth. And once more, a deep breath in. And exhale. Washing the body with breath. And we'll just close this very simple practice. In the yoga tradition, it's usually Om, symbolizing beginning, middle, and end. I like to end my prayers with Amen. The same roots. And so I will demo it once, and then twice more we can do together, or just listening and allowing the vibration to wash over you. So a deep breath in through the nose, out the mouth. Inhale. Gently allowing yourself to find some movement in fingers and toes, opening the eyes. And slowly, if you're lying down, making your way to sit. Thank you so much for practicing with me. If this is helpful or useful, please send a message to Pastor or to me, emailing me directly. If this would be helpful, like live on a Zoom call, that could be an option, or I can just keep posting videos, perhaps weekly or bi-weekly, to practice with. But just want this to be kind of a balm to the soul and to the body and to the mind during these times. Okay, have a great rest of your day, rest of your week.